So who exactly is going to start opposite Terry McLaurin week one for the Washington Commanders? Come on, let's talk about it next on Washington Football Maniacs. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Brandon Scott again, and today we're going to talk about the updated depth chart heading into week one for the Washington Commanders. Now, before we get into today's content, if you're not a member of the Washington Football Maniacs, definitely consider becoming a member because we go live after each and every regular season game, and any news that comes out for the Washington Commanders, we will be putting it out for you guys. So, like I said, a lot of good content coming your way this season. So, definitely consider being a member. Hit that like button and hit that notification button to let you know when these videos come out so you don't miss this dope content. So, let's get into it. Updated depth chart heading into week one of the regular season for the Washington Commanders. Because, again, it is Thursday. It is officially week one of the NFL season with the Baltimore Ravens playing the Kansas City Chiefs tonight. So, very happy that football's back. I know a lot of you guys are. So, let's get into it. The updated depth charts for the Washington Commanders heading into week one matchup versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So let's start with quarterback. I think there's not a lot of surprises with this. Obviously, Jane Daniels is QB1, backup Marcus Mariota, and third string is Jeff Driscoll. No surprises, no complaints. I think that's pretty much what everybody thought it was going to be. All right, hitting to running back, Brian Robinson Jr. You could say is kind of a co-backfield between him and Austin Eckler, but I look at Brian Robinson Jr. being primarily the main running back, man, the guy that's going to be ground and pound, right? You're looking at Austin Eckler, he's going to be very active in passing downs and third down. So it is definitely Brian Robinson Jr.'s show this season, man. And this is definitely a season where I want to see him finally reach that 1,000-yard rushing mark. So look, the ball's his now. So while Austin Eckler is kind of in a co-running back role with him, I look at Austin Eckler being primarily the third down back and a passing down back. Brian Robinson Jr. is the man running back. And like I said, I'm very intrigued to see if he finally hits that 1,000-yard rushing mark this season. All right, looking at the third running back on the depth chart, Jeremy McNichols. He's a special teams guy. He's a vet. So, I mean, obviously the household names is Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler. But Jeremy McNichols is a guy who obviously is here for depth, but will be a player that's very active in special teams. So let's get to wide receiver. This is the hot topic, man. Who starts opposite Terry McLaurin week one? Now, obviously, wide receiver one is scary. Terry should be. He's the man. He's definitely poised to have a big season. Finally playing with a franchise quarterback. Now, Jay Daniels is going to have his bumps and bruises, his ups and downs, his highs and lows. But if you look at the quarterback list that Terry McLaurin has had to play with, man, he finally has a legit franchise quarterback, in my opinion. So I definitely want to see him see his numbers get boosted this year with him having a legit number one QB. Nothing against the other guys, man. Heineke was the man, all heart. But, man, look, Jaden is our franchise guy. So looking at wide receiver again, obviously wide receiver one is Terry McLaurin. Right now, they have slated the number two receiver as Olamide Zacchaeus. Now, a lot of people thought it was going to be a De'Ami Brown. Right now, this updated depth chart is unofficial. This is coming from the Washington Commanders website, commanders.com. So it is unofficial, but this is pretty much unofficial depth chart, right? If you kind of see what I'm saying. So right now, De'Ami Brown is looking to be the fourth receiver because your slot receiver is slated to be Luke McCaffrey. Now, before we move on to tight end, what do I think about that? I think De'Ami Brown's done enough to where he at least garnered the opportunity to be number two opposite Terry McLaurin with his speed, with his hands, with his dedication, with his work ethic, with him really putting some work into his game this season or this off season. I think that he should have got the chance. And like I said, he very well could be number two. Like I said, right now they have Zacchaeus as number two. To me, he's kind of undersized to be a number two receiver. Luke McCaffrey, I believe is 6'2", but I don't think he's ready to be a number two to take pressure off Terry McLaurin. So, I mean, De'Ami Brown was a guy that I thought had a legitimate chance. And, like I said, it ain't done till it's done. Week one, you very well can see De'Ami over there. But right now they have Zacchaeus there over there. But, at 5'8", Scary Terry needs a guy opposite him who's a more physical receiver with some size. And that's what I thought with this year's draft. They did address a lot of needs, not only immediate needs, but long-term needs. Wasn't a bad draft at all. Especially when you compare them to Ron Rivera's drafts, where we're steadily getting rid of every one of his draft picks. But what a bad draft. But it was, a lot of these draft choices were built on the future. You know what I mean? But a lot of potential. So let's get into so like I said, they did address wide receiver. Luke McCaffrey, I think, is going to be a really good slot, but they didn't find that taller, more physical receiver to take the pressure off of Scary Terry. So it's going to be intriguing to see who does line up number 2, because right now on the depth chart they do have Olamide Zacchaeus, but De'Ami Brown's a guy who I think should have a legitimate chance to be the number 2 opposite Scary Terry. And then looking at the other receivers on the depth chart, obviously Noah Brown is going to be in the mix to be the 4th or the 5th, and Brian Pringle and Jamison Crowder. He was going to be very active in special teams. So let's get into tight end. And like I said, not a lot of surprises, but maybe one surprise at the end of the list. But looking at tight end starters right now, Zach Ertz is going to be the starter. Now, is he going to be a starter for the future? Nah, he's probably going to be a 1-year rental pretty much for the Washington Commanders. With him being familiar with Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona, he's a guy who's going to come in and he's going to do well at tight end. He's definitely going to be a good safety valve for Jaden Daniels, but obviously, again, he is not a long-term piece at tight end. John Bates is backing him up. Now, John Bates, good blocker, still working on his catching, still working on his hands, and then you're looking at the guy behind him, Ben Sinnott. Ben Sinnott very well could be pushing John Bates, man, and you very well could be looking at Ben Sinnott as the future at tight end. I mean, if you look at what he can do with his pass catching, with his dog factor, I think Ben Sinnott could leapfrog John Bates. Now, not to say that I don't think that John Bates is part of the future. I mean, he's more of a blocker as opposed to a pass catcher. But Ben Sinnott and John Bates right now are the 2 focal points as far as young pieces at the tight end position. And behind Ben Sinnott, they have Colson Yankov. I mean, he's probably, if you need to make a move, barring injuries, or he's probably the one guy's going to be first to get released, in my opinion. I mean, he's a depth piece, and I don't really look at him as being the future. Nothing against the young man, but the future is definitely Ben Sinnott and to a certain degree John Bates. Let's get into this O-line real quick, guys, before we get into the defense. Starting off with left tackle, they have Brandon Coleman. I think that's definitely best. We'll see if he can hold down left tackle. I think that worst case scenario, he can eventually be moved to left guard. So we'll see how Allegretti does at left guard. But Brandon Coleman has shown a lot of potential in training camp and preseason. So Brandon Coleman is slated to be the starting left tackle. Look, he's a nice prospect. I think that he definitely has a chance to be that cornerstone left tackle. We'll see. Obviously he has a lot to prove, but he's looked pretty good in training camp, and he's had his highs and his lows. He's a rookie, but we'll see if he can hold it down. But he is the week 1 left tackle. Backing him up is Cornelius Lucas. No surprises there. Left guard, Nick Allegretti is starting with his backup being Chris Paul. And Chris Paul is going to be backing up both left guard and right guard, sitting behind Nick Allegretti and Sam Cosmi at right guard. So about Sam Cosmi. We covered in the last video. He signed an extension, much deserved, and he is a top 10 guard in the NFL. And he's a guy who is definitely the anchor of this offensive line and is the first piece to building this O-line into the juggernaut to see if we can get it back to the Hog days, man. Really have a dominant offensive line. And I think that Sam Cosmi is the first step. I would be very, very surprised if he did not make a Pro Bowl this year, in my humble opinion. So, again, Chris Paul will be backing him up, and Nick Allegretti at left guard. Look at that center position. Tyler Biadace is slotted to be the starter, with the backup being Michael Dieter. And right tackle, Andrew Wiley is a starter right now. A lot to prove. Very well could be on his way out the door after the season, but hopefully he can definitely try to be a consistent source of protection for Jaden Daniels, because Jaden Daniels needs all the protection he can get, because the offensive line is not a finished product yet. So he is slated to be the starting right tackle, backed up by Trent Scott. All right, everybody, let's get into the defense, and then we're going to go ahead and call it a night, because we're going to do our preview for week 1 tomorrow night. So let's get through this depth chart, because like I said, this is the official but unofficial depth chart put out by the Washington Commanders on their website. All right, so start off with the D-line. Defensive end, starting on the left side, looking at Dorrance Armstrong, backed up by Javonte Jean-Baptiste. On the other side is Clelin Ferrell, who is slated to be the starter, with the long day, y'all. Backed up by Jamin Davis. Looking at the defensive tackles, I think we already know who is going to start at defensive tackle. Obviously, Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen. But the backup span, very intriguing. Jazan Newton, a.k.a. Johnny Newton. He's a guy who's looked to as the future at defensive tackle. Jonathan Allen very well could be a trade candidate after the season. Very well could be at the trade deadline. We'll see because this team is retooling. So Jonathan Allen is, definitely his days are numbered as far as how many seasons he has left in DC. But Deron Payne is definitely a future piece, and Johnny Newton was drafted because he's a starter for the future. He definitely is. I love his motor, and I think he's going to do well in DC, man. Also at defensive tackle, Fedarian Mathis. Now with him, it's been an injury bug, right? He's been hurt every year. Can he find that consistency? Can he stay healthy? And he very well could be part of the future too, but he has to go a long way to prove that he can stay healthy. All right, so let's take a look at the linebacker core, which used to be the soft point in the defense in Washington. Now it is a position or a group of strength. Now looking at the starting middle linebacker, Bobby Wagner. Yep, that guy from Seattle. That guy, man. Part of the Legion of Boom. He is slated to be the QB of the defense at middle linebacker. All right, outside linebacker. On one side, you have Frankie Louvu, and he's being backed up by Dominic Hampton. On the other side, you have Dante Fowler Jr., who is, again, being backed up by Dominic Hampton, who can play linebacker and safety. So, and going back to middle linebacker, Michael Walker is backing up Bobby Wagner. So, again, Dante Fowler Jr., Bobby Wagner, and Frankie Louvu. This is not a bad linebacker core. Jamie Davis, again, is going on to the edge to be a pass rusher. So, not a bad linebacker core, in my opinion, because I think Frankie Louvu is going to have a Pro Bowl year, in my opinion. Frankie Louvu is a dog, man. I mean, Bobby Wagner is going to do so good for these young guys, man, on the defense. Frankie Louvu, again, I think is a fringe all-star. I'm going back to baseball. Fringe Pro Bowler who can definitely learn a lot from Bobby Wagner. And Dante Fowler Jr. is a nice prospect, man. He's a guy who could really hold down the other side of the linebacker core for the Washington Commanders. So, again, not a bad linebacker core overall. Let's get into the secondary. All right, 3 cornerbacks. So, the starting QB1 is still up in there, y'all. But right now, starting a cornerback, Benjamin St-Juste, Emmanuel Forbes Jr., and looking to start at the slot cornerback position, Mike Sainristil. Now, backing up Benjamin St-Juste and Emmanuel Forbes is Michael Davis, the vet formerly of the Los Angeles Chargers, and Noah Igbinogen. I'm sorry if I butchered his name. That is what your depth chart is looking for with the secondary. So let's get into the safeties real quick. Again, not a big surprise here. Jeremy Chin is slated to start as strong safety, backed up by Derek Forrest. And then behind him is Tyler Owens. So not bad indeed. I mean, we know Derek Forrest can be the heavy hitter who at times can struggle in coverage, but Jeremy Chin is a guy kind of like Frankie Louvu, formerly of both of them are coming over from the Carolina Panthers. Both of these guys are dogs in the defense, man. So I'm very intrigued to see how both Frankie Louvu and Jeremy Chin do in DC after playing together in Carolina. Now, at free safety, Quan Martin is slated to start with Jeremy Reeves, the special teamer, to back him up, and Percy Butler is third at free safety. All right, so let's get into special teams real quick before we call it a night, y'all. Not a lot of surprises. Punter, Tress Way, kicker, Cade York, and long snapper, Tyler Ott. Now, looking at kick returners and punt returners, right now, Jamison Crowder is the guy at punt returner, even though you can see some reps with Olamide Zacchaeus. And that's why I think that, looking at the depth chart, you very well can see De'Ami Brown too, because usually you don't have your number 2 receiver playing special teams. You know what I mean? And that's why I think that I'm not going to say it's a typo. I'm not going to say they tripping over there with Commanders.com, but I'm going to say this. I think that De'Ami Brown has a better chance of being number 2 opposite of Terry than Zacchaeus does. I think Zacchaeus is going to be very active in special teams. Kick returners, looking at Byron Pringle and, again, Zacchaeus. So, De'Ami Brown, I think, definitely needs to get the nod to be the number 2 wide receiver opposite Terry McLaurin. So that is the updated, unofficial depth chart for the Washington Commanders heading into week 1 of the NFL regular season. And again, me and Greg are going to do the proper preview for Sunday's week 1 matchup versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So definitely tune in for that. So again, guys, get in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think about the updated unofficial depth chart heading into week 1. Are you surprised? Are you not surprised? But, we've already covered the 53-man roster and with the surprises. But I think that overall, real quick before we move on, guys, this team is in a gray area. I mean, they're too good to be a top 10 draft pick type of team, but they're not quite there to really be a serious contender in the NFC East. And even though the NFC East does have its storylines, A lot of storylines. Philadelphia. How long does the head coach have in Philly? Jalen Hurts. If they struggle, hey, there's going to be a lot of heads going to roll in Philly. Dallas, Dak, is he here after this season? A lot of storyline. And the same thing with the Giants, man. With the struggles with Daniel Jones. So this team is going to be better than advertised. I think they're going to be a sneaky good team, but we're not quite ready for showtime. So again, guys, definitely tune in tomorrow night for the Week 1 preview for the Washington Commanders versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with me and my co-host Greg Sykes. So again, appreciate you guys. We will see you guys tomorrow night. Hail to the Commanders and peace. See you guys next time.